From police officer to city council member to state senator, we'll meet Cecil Thomas next on Ohio in Focus. Hello and welcome to Ohio in Focus, the program that brings state government to you. I'm your host, Mike Rao. We're pleased to have in the studio today one of the newest members of the Ohio Senate. Cecil Thomas joined the Senate in January. He represents Cincinnati and the 9th Senate District. Senator, thanks for joining us and being your first time here on Ohio in Focus.
Well, thank you for having me.
I want to talk a little bit as we start here about your background. You've been in public service for quite a while.
Over 40 years. I spent 27 years in law enforcement, doing all aspects of policing. I then took over as executive director of the Cincinnati Human Relations Commission for 5 years. And then I ran for city council and was elected for 4 two-year terms from 2005 to 2013. I was the chair of public safety as well as the president pro tem for those 8 years.
And then you decided to run for the Senate, too.
Yep, I stepped on out there. I thought I was going to retire after that. I told my wife that was it after council, but no, here I am.
Okay, well, we're glad to have you. Let's talk a little bit about one of actually your first bill you introduced in the Senate, which really draws on your experience as a police officer and the work that you did in Cincinnati, and that is Senate Bill 23, which is a community police relations bill, which is something that's been in the news a lot lately on a nationwide basis.
Absolutely.
Things going on, difficulties, Ferguson, Missouri, and a situation in Cleveland. Tell me, what are the main points of this bill?
Well, first of all, given the climate around the country, that's what compelled me to put this bill in place, especially what has happened in Beaver Creek, Ohio, as well as Cleveland, right in our own backyards. So I was compelled to put this bill together. And basically the bill focuses on training and data collection. Those are really key points of the bill. Training, most law enforcement officers do not have those basic kinds of training, such as mental health crisis intervention training, de-escalation skills training, cultural sensitivity training, and these are areas that really drive the relationship between citizens and police in those kinds of contacts. Oftentimes they end up in a negative type of contact. So it's so critically important that officers get that type of training. Most of your larger agencies allow for that training. But a lot of your smaller agencies, those maybe having 20 officers or less, they are limited in their funding. So they are unable to get that type of advanced training. They go with the basic law enforcement training that's required by OPATA. They may get some of this training, but it's not ongoing. You have to have a consistent training in these areas, consistent reevaluation of your training in these areas to keep you sharp.
And your bill would include funding about $15 million to put training out there for these police departments, law enforcement departments that really don't have the resources.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We broke it down as to how many law enforcement officers are there in the state, the amount of hours required to meet this type of training, and that's how we came up with the funding formula for this effort.
So the data collection, you mentioned that as a very important point. What sorts of data and what is that data then used for?
Well, when you get into the data collection, data tells the story of how an officer is doing. It speaks a lot to the how the local police department is doing as well. So the type of data we'll be looking for is when you pull an individual over, you record the race and gender of that individual. We have to recognize that a lot of the areas where there's citizens police contacts that results in what we see in Ferguson. It happens oftentimes it's centered around African American individuals. So we want to know what would the data tell us in a local police department as to how they're policing the African American community for that matter. But overall, use of force. We want to know if there are officers, is the department overusing its efforts when it comes to use of force. Whenever there's a major critical incident, such as the death of an individual at the hands of the police, we want that information reported to the Attorney General's office, and we want to be able to look at it from that standpoint as well.
Is there a reluctance, though, on police departments to really look at that, provide that data? And what's your experience in Cincinnati once you did collect the data? Was there a positive effect from that?
Given what occurred in Cincinnati in 2001, we had civil unrest. Prior to that actual unrest, the relationship between citizens and police, some segments of our community and the police, was at an all-time low. It was very difficult. Police were, it was an attitude of us against them. Being a law enforcement officer, I recognize that attitude, that the citizens thought we were against them, and officers felt that the citizens were against them. So we then had civil unrest. But after that, we had to decide we're doing something wrong in Cincinnati. And it's centered around how were we policing in the city of Cincinnati? Were we racial profiling individuals? All of that. But to answer that question, we needed to look at data. We needed to look at the traffic stops and citizen police contacts and gather that information based on what we already had in our files. And it did show that we were indiscriminately stopping individuals, African Americans in particular, more so than any other race of folks. So with that, we then decided we needed to look at other ways of policing. And out of that was birthed the collaborative agreement, which is a collaboration between citizens and police working together to establish relationships. And we also had a second area that we looked at was the policies and procedures of the Cincinnati Police Department. We overhauled that. We saw a lot of areas that needed to be either changed or literally thrown out. And so with all of that, we came up with a model that really works well in the city of Cincinnati.
How much have things improved?
Much better, much better. I always gauge how we're doing by the number of people that call into our Crime Stopper program. And our numbers have been off the charts in Cincinnati. We have solved so many unsolved cases as a result of the better working relationship between citizens and police, where people feel comfortable calling the police. Because they feel that they are a part of the police agency as opposed to being apart from it.
Now, the governor has set up a task force to look into this issue of community policing. But your bill would kind of go beyond the task force, which is for a set period of time. You would set up a commission.
Yeah. I applaud the governor. He's ahead of the curve. He put together a task force to look at policing in Ohio, and that task force will report on its recommendations, I believe, the end of April. However, that stops at that point. We have to have a commission in place to oversee the efforts as it relates to policing in the state of Ohio, as we would like it to be. And the only way we can do that is have a commission in place, make sure we're implementing the recommendations such as those that I've recommended, and making sure that our community is part of all of that.
I want to shift gears to another bill you've introduced, which is Senate Bill 95. This is an idea that was kicked around in the last General Assembly, came close to actually happening, didn't. But now it's been brought up again in your bill, and that would be to create what are called refreshment districts in cities such as Cincinnati, but other municipalities across the state. Talk to me a little bit about what this would do.
Well, cities like Cincinnati, that's the core of your region, which expands outside of the boundaries of the city of Cincinnati. But the core is what draws people into the city. The activities activities that go on in the city. We have 2 stadiums and we have all kinds of eateries. So what better way to highlight that and bring people from all over the region into your area is to create an entertainment district. And a district that will allow you to kind of walk around freely if you just want to just enjoy the activities within that district. It's similar to what we see on Beale Street in Memphis. I believe it's also it's called 4th Street in Louisville. Mm-hmm. They have a geographical area that will allow for folks to walk around without having to be arrested for open flask or anything like that. They can just kind of walk through the community, through the district, without just to be more relaxed. And what it does is it really spurs additional vibrancy in a community. So I'm looking forward to that occurring, and I'm thinking that it's going to really cause folks to want to come into the area, and the outlying areas benefit as well, because when your hotels are filled in other parts of your city or your county, for that matter, everybody benefits.
So, judging from the press coverage of this bill as it's been talked about in the last few months, statewide, there seems to be a lot of interest. Mm-hmm. Not just Cincinnati, but Cleveland area, Akron area, Canton area. Yeah. And because of that, are you optimistic that it'll pass?
Oh, I'm sure it will. Yeah, it's a gathering spot. It's something that people can come to the ball games. We got the 2 stadiums. Cleveland's got stadiums. It's a gathering spot that will allow people to just unwind and have a good time.
Great. Well, Senator Thomas, thanks for stopping by to talk to us. We'll have you on again here during the General Assembly.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Thanks. Well, you can follow Senator Thomas and the Ohio Senate Democratic Caucus on social media. Check out Facebook, Twitter, and ohiosenate.gov for the latest news. Thanks for watching Ohio in Focus.